Hello there and welcome. This session is designed to help you ease into deep, restful sleep. We'll begin with a simple meditation to calm your body and quiet your mind. Then, as you drift closer to sleep, I'll introduce a gentle bedtime story, just enough to carry you into your dreams. Before we begin, press the like button and subscribe for more sleep story videos. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment saying where you're listening from and what time. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a deep breath in and out. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale gently. One more time, inhale deeply, filling your lungs with fresh, soothing air. And as you exhale, let go of the day, releasing any tension, any thoughts that no longer serve you. With each breath, feel your body becoming lighter, more at ease, sinking into comfort. You're doing great. Next, bring your awareness to the top of your head. Imagine a warm, gentle light resting there, like the soft glow of a bedside lamp. This light begins to spread slowly, easing away any tension in your forehead, softening the space between your eyebrows, relaxing your eyelids, your cheeks, your jaw. There's nothing you need to hold on to. Just let everything soften, loosen, unwind. Feel your shoulders drop slightly as if a weight has been lifted. Your arms become heavy, sinking into deep relaxation. With every breath, this warmth moves lower, your chest rising and falling effortlessly, your stomach soft and calm, your legs and feet completely at rest. The world around you fades into quiet. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be. Just this moment, just rest. Imagine yourself wrapped in a cozy, soft blanket of stillness, safe, warm, and peaceful. Each breath carries you deeper into comfort, deeper into rest, deeper into sleep. And here's tonight's cozy bedtime story. The tea shop at the end of the rainbow. I had been walking for what felt like an eternity, my boots caked in the dust of endless roads, my heart heavy with the weight of untold stories. The world stretched out before me, an endless expanse of hills and valleys, rivers and forests, but none of it felt like home. I was a traveler, a nomad of the soul, seeking something I could not name. Perhaps it was peace. Perhaps it was belonging. Or perhaps it was just a place to rest for a while. It was then that I saw it. A rainbow, impossibly bright, arched across the sky, its colors so vivid they seemed to hum with life. I had seen rainbows before, of course, but this one was different. It touched the earth in the distance, its end disappearing into the misty folds of a valley below. I had heard the old tales, the whispers of fortune awaiting those who found the rainbow's end, but I was no fool chasing gold. I simply had nowhere else to be. With a sigh, I adjusted my pack and followed the light. The descent into the valley was slow. the mist curling around me like the breath of some great sleeping beast. The air grew cooler, scented with something unfamiliar yet comforting. The closer I came to the rainbow's end, the clearer my path became, until at last the mist parted to reveal something I had not expected. A tea shop. It stood nestled between two great oaks, their roots intertwining like the hands of old lovers. The shop was small, its wooden frame dark with age, yet warm lantern light glowed from its windows, casting golden halos onto the mist. A sign above the door read simply, "The Tea Wizard." I hesitated. A place such as this did not belong here, in the quiet folds of an untouched valley, and yet the scent of tea and spice curled through the air, beckoning me forward. My feet, tired and aching, carried me over the threshold before my mind could decide otherwise. Inside, the shop was a haven of warmth and comfort. Shelves lined with jars of tea leaves and spices stretched from floor to ceiling, the air thick with their mingling fragrances. Wooden tables sat in cozy corners, each adorned with a small candle flickering gently. Behind the counter, a man, no, not a man, something more, stood watching me with knowing eyes. He was tall, his silver hair falling past his shoulders like strands of moonlight. His robes, a deep shade of green, shimmered in the candlelight as if woven with threads of morning dew. But it was his eyes that held me in place, pale and endless, like the sky before a storm. "Welcome," he said, his voice a melody I did not know I had been waiting to hear. "You have traveled far." I swallowed, my throat dry. Yes, I suppose I have." He nodded, as if he had expected that answer. "Sit," he said, motioning to a table near the window. "You look like a man in need of tea." Something inside me uncoiled at his words, and I found myself obeying without question. The chair was sturdy, the table smooth beneath my fingertips. Outside, the mist continued to swirl, but in here, I was safe. The tea wizard moved with quiet grace, selecting a jar from the shelves, measuring leaves with careful precision. As the water boiled, he turned to me once more. "You followed the rainbow," he said. It was not a question. I nodded. "It led me here." "As it was meant to." I frowned. Do you put it there?" He chuckled, a low and rich sound. "No, my dear traveler. Rainbows are not mine to summon. They are simply pathways, guiding those who need to find their way." "And what is this place?" I asked. "Who are you?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he poured the tea, the liquid a deep amber, fragrant and inviting. He placed the cup before me, and I wrapped my hands around its warmth. "I am the tea wizard," he said at last, a small smile touching his lips. "And this is a sanctuary for weary souls." I took a sip of the tea, and something inside me shifted. The flavor was unlike anything I had ever tasted. Floral, yet rich, with an undercurrent of something ancient and powerful. The warmth spread through me, easing aches I had long since grown used to. I exhaled slowly. "This is remarkable." The tea wizard inclined his head. "Tea is more than leaves and water, Elias. I blinked. How do you know my name? His smile deepened. I know many things. Silence settled between us, comfortable and unhurried. Outside, the rainbow had begun to fade, its colors dissolving into the sky, but I no longer felt the need to chase it. For the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I was meant to be. Tell me, Elias, the tea wizard said, his voice gentle. What is it you seek? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I did not know the answer, or perhaps I had known all along but had never dared to speak it aloud. I don't know, I admitted, staring into the depths of my tea. The tea wizard nodded as if this too he had expected. Then stay, he said. Drink your tea, rest, and when you are ready the road will still be waiting. A part of me wanted to protest, to say I could not stay, that I had no home here. But the words never came. Instead, I took another sip of tea and let its warmth fill the spaces within me that had been empty for too long. For the first time in years, I was not just a traveler. I was not lost. I was home. I took the cup in my hands, the warmth of it spreading through my fingers like the embrace of an old friend. The scent of the tea was unlike anything I had ever encountered, earthy, yet with a whisper of something floral, something ancient. As I brought the cup to my lips, the steam curled around my face, and the first sip sent a calmness through me that felt as though it had been waiting in my bones for years. The tea wizard watched me with knowing eyes, his robe shimmering as though woven from twilight itself. He sat opposite me in his small, cluttered tea shop, where jars of dried leaves and vials of amber-hued liquids lined the shelves. The room was bathed in soft golden light, the kind that made time feel suspended, as if the outside world had momentarily forgotten about me. You carry a storm within you, Elias, he said, his voice gentle yet firm. But even the wildest tempests can be soothed. I swallowed hard, not just from the tea, but from the truth in his words. He spoke as if he had peered straight into my soul and seen the weight I carried. I don't even know where to begin, I admitted, setting the cup down carefully. Everything feels heavy, like I'm walking through a dream I can't wake up from. The tea wizard nodded, stroking his beard in contemplation. Dreams and reality often blur when one's heart is troubled. But tell me, Elias, what is it you seek? The question settled into my chest like a stone dropped into a still pond. I had spent so long running from my past, from my regrets, that I had never stopped to ask myself what I truly wanted. Peace, I said at last, the word escaping me in a breath. I just want peace. The old man smiled, his eyes twinkling with something between wisdom and amusement. Ah, peace, a noble thing to seek. But peace is not found, Elias. It is brewed like tea. He reached for a small wooden box and lifted the lid, revealing an assortment of dried leaves and petals. With careful, practiced hands, he selected a few and dropped them into a pot of steaming water. The scent that arose was different this time, deeper, more robust. Each leaf carries a story, just as you do, he continued. Some are bitter, some are sweet. The art of tea is in the balance. You must learn to embrace each note, to let them steep together. Only then will you find what you seek. I watched as the liquid darkened, the leaves unfurling like tiny secrets revealing themselves to the world. The tea wizard poured me another cup, and as I took another sip, something stirred inside me. It was subtle but undeniable. A shift, a loosening of the knot that had been tangled within me for so long. So, what do I do now? I asked, my voice quieter than before. He leaned back in his chair, the wooden frame creaking. You listen, he said, to the tea, to the world, to yourself. And when the time comes, you will know where to go. I stared down at my cup, watching the tiny ripples on the surface of the tea. For the first time in a long while, the weight on my shoulders felt just a little lighter. The steam curled from the surface of the cup, a slow dance of warmth and memory. I wrapped my fingers around the porcelain, feeling the weight of something far greater than the sum of its parts. The tea wizard sat across from me, watching with a knowing gaze, his gnarled hands folded neatly on the table. There was no rush, no demand, only the quiet expectation that I would take my first sip when I was ready. I wasn't sure I ever would be, but the aroma drifted upward, coaxing something deep within me, teasing the edges of a recollection I couldn't quite grasp. The scent was sweet yet earthy, like the first rains soaking into sun-baked ground. And then, without conscious thought, I lifted the cup to my lips. The taste was warmth itself, a golden thread that wove through my senses, through time. It was the taste of sunlight, of open skies and wind in my hair. My breath caught in my throat as the world around me shifted. Suddenly, I was no longer sitting in the tea wizard's dimly lit cottage. I was outside, surrounded by endless fields of golden wheat. The wind hummed as it rushed past my ears, and the sky above was endless, impossibly blue. My feet were bare, the earth firm beneath them as I ran, laughter bubbling up from deep inside me. It was not my voice alone, it was hers too, my mother's laughter. I turned, and there she was, young, vibrant, with sunlight caught in her hair. She chased after me, her arms outstretched, her face alight with joy. My heart ached at the sight, at the purity of this moment I had somehow lost. I was a child again, free, unburdened by the weight of years, by the things that came after. "Elias!" she called, and I turned, grinning, my arms pumping as I ran faster. But she caught me, of course she did, pulling me into her embrace. I could feel the rapid beat of my heart against her chest, the way her laughter shook through both of us. "You're getting too fast for me," she teased, ruffling my hair. I giggled, squirming in her hold, but she held me tighter for just a moment longer. "Promise me something?" I nodded, breathless. "Anything." "Never stop running toward joy," she whispered, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "No matter what." A gust of wind swept through the fields, carrying with it the scent of earth and home, of warmth and safety. And then, just as suddenly, the world shifted again. The fields blurred, the golden light fading into the dim candlelit glow of the tea wizard's cottage. The porcelain cup was still warm in my hands, but I could feel the lingering imprint of my mother's arms around me, the ghost of her laughter ringing in my ears. I sucked in a shaky breath, my vision blurred. My hands trembled slightly as I placed the cup back on the wooden table. The tea wizard studied me, his eyes filled with something that might have been understanding, or perhaps approval. He did not ask what I had seen. He didn't need to. "It is a powerful thing," he murmured, his voice a whisper against the stillness. "Memory and magic." I swallowed hard, nodding. I had forgotten, I admitted, my voice rough. I had forgotten how it felt to be whole, he supplied. The words settled deep in my chest. I nodded again. He gestured toward the cup. "Tea, Elias, is more than leaves and water. It is history, it is spirit, it is truth. The first cup will always show you what was lost." I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his words, the truth of them sinking in. When I opened them again, the tea wizard was watching me with that same patient expression. "And the second?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "The second will show you what is yet to come." The steam curled upward, forming ephemeral patterns in the dim light. The tea wizard's shop had a way of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, and as I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic cup, I knew this was no ordinary tea. The first sip was smooth, rich, carrying with it a familiar sweetness that I couldn't quite place. It was like the whisper of a memory, just out of reach. Then it hit me. Leora. The name blossomed in my mind, as if plucked from the pages of my past. Leora, my childhood friend, the one person who had known me better than anyone. I hadn't thought of her in years, but suddenly I could hear her laugh, see her bright green eyes flashing with mischief. The scent of the tea carried me further, deeper into the memory. We were 10 years old, sitting under the great willow tree by the river. The afternoon sun dappled through the leaves, and the air smelled of damp earth and wildflowers. Leora had a piece of twine, twisting it around her fingers as she spoke. "Promise me, Elias," she had said, her voice full of the solemnity only children can muster. "Promise me that no matter what happens, we'll find each other again." I had laughed then, not because I didn't take her seriously, but because the thought of being apart seemed impossible. We had been inseparable since we were 5. Of course I promised, no matter what. She had grinned, looping the twine around my wrist like a makeshift bracelet. "Then it's settled. No matter how far apart we are, we'll always find our way back." But life had a way of unraveling promises. I moved away at 13, and the letters we exchanged dwindled until they stopped altogether. Time eroded the sharpness of memory, smoothing the edges until she became nothing more than a lingering ache in the quiet moments. And yet, Here she was, resurrected by the simple act of drinking tea. "This tea," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "It tastes like something you've lost." The tea wizard's voice was gentle, knowing. His violet eyes shimmered with something unreadable. I nodded. "Leora." He smiled, not surprised. "Memory is a powerful thing, Elias. Some connections are never truly broken." The weight of his words settled deep in my chest. Could she remember too? Did she ever think about that promise beneath the willow tree? My heart pounded at the thought. Maybe it was foolish, but something in me refused to let go of the possibility. "Is she still out there?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Is there a way to find her?" The tea wizard studied me for a long moment before setting down his own cup. "There is always a way. But the question is, are you ready to walk that path?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." His smile deepened, and with a flick of his wrist he produced another teacup, this one with an iridescent shimmer to its surface. "Then drink." The tea was different this time. A subtle floral note, something lighter, airier. The moment it touched my tongue, the world around me shifted. The shop blurred, sounds muffled, and suddenly I was standing somewhere else entirely. A marketplace, bustling with color and movement. The scent of baked bread and jasmine filled the air. My heart thundered in my chest as I turned, searching, knowing what I would find. And there she was, Leora. Her hair was shorter now, curling just below her chin. But those green eyes, unchanged, still carrying the spark of mischief I remembered. She was standing at a stall, examining a row of delicate silver bracelets, completely unaware of me. For a moment I simply watched, afraid that if I moved she would vanish like the wisp of a dream. But then, as if sensing my presence, she looked up. Her eyes met mine. Recognition dawned slowly, widening her gaze, parting her lips. "Elias?" I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "It's me, Leora." A beat of silence, then a sudden, breathless laugh. "It worked!" I blinked. "What?" She reached for her wrist, pulling at something. A thin, faded piece of twine, frayed but still intact. The same twine she had tied around my wrist all those years ago. "I never took it off," she said softly. "I hoped, I believed." My own wrist felt suddenly bare, and I glanced down, remembering how mine had been lost somewhere along the way. But it didn't matter now. She was here. We had found each other. A lump formed in my throat. "I can't believe this. How are you—" "A story for another time," she interrupted, grinning. "But you found me, Elias, just like we promised." The marketplace faded as the tea's magic released me, and I found myself back in the tea wizard's shop, my pulse racing. The shop was quiet again, the weight of the moment settling over me like a thick blanket. The tea wizard watched me with a satisfied nod. "Some paths must be walked, Elias. Others, they find their own way." I looked down at my empty cup, my heart still pounding. Leora was out there, alive, remembering. And now nothing in the world could stop me from finding her again. I held my breath as I gazed at the shimmering tea leaves before me, each one pulsing softly with an inner light. The tea wizard's shop was unlike anything I had ever encountered, a place where the very air seemed to hum with secrets. The scent of aged herbs and spiced brews curled around me, wrapping me in warmth, yet a faint chill ran down my spine. There was something here, something more than just a shop filled with enchanted teas. A soft rustling at my feet drew my attention downward. The cat, a sleek creature with eyes like liquid amber, twitched its tail and padded silently across the wooden floor. It moved with an uncanny purpose, glancing back at me before slipping through a narrow space between two overstuffed shelves. My curiosity flared. What had it found? Glancing toward the tea wizard, who busied himself behind the counter grinding leaves with rhythmic precision, I decided to follow. The space was tight, lined with jars labeled in an elegant looping script. The cat disappeared behind a draped curtain, and as I pulled it aside, my breath hitched. A door. Not just any door. This one was different. Unlike the wooden doors of the shop, this one was built into the wall, flush and near invisible, as if the shop itself had tried to keep it hidden. The handle was smooth, dark brass, cool beneath my fingers. The cat sat beside it, tail curling around its paws, watching me expectantly. "What have you found, little one?" I murmured, more to myself than the feline. I glanced back, half expecting the tea wizard to call me away, but he remained occupied. I hesitated only a moment longer before turning the handle. The door swung inward with a sigh, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward. My heart pounded in my chest. I stepped inside, and the cat followed, slipping past me like a shadow. The air was different here, older, thick with a scent I couldn't quite place. Dim globes of light flickered to life along the walls as I descended, casting long shadows that danced like whispering specters. At the bottom, the space opened into a vast chamber lined with shelves far older than those above. Glass vials, dried herbs, and ancient tomes filled every available surface. A large table sat in the center, covered in parchment with inked diagrams and notes I couldn't decipher. The walls bore etchings, symbols curling and twisting into patterns that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. I stepped forward, drawn to the table. My fingers brushed across one of the parchments, and the ink glowed faintly under my touch. The cat leapt onto the table and pawed at a small ornate box. I reached for it, feeling the delicate carvings beneath my fingertips. The latch gave way easily, revealing a set of tea leaves. Darker, richer than any I had seen before, shimmering not just with light, but with something deeper, something alive. A voice, deep, smooth, echoed behind me. "You've found the heart of the shop, Elias." I spun to find the tea wizard standing at the base of the stairs, his expression unreadable, though his eyes held a quiet knowing. The cat leapt from the table and wound around his legs before trotting back to my side, as if awaiting my next move. "What is this place?" I asked. my voice barely above a whisper. The tea wizard stepped forward, his robes rustling like dry leaves. "This," he said, gesturing to the chamber, "is where true magic is brewed." I swallowed hard. "You knew I'd find it." He smiled, the corners of his mouth twitching. "Of course, the shop chooses its secrets wisely, and it seems it has chosen to share this one with you." I looked back at the shimmering leaves in the box. My pulse quickened. There was more to this than just enchanted tea. I could feel it. I had stepped through a doorway not just of wood and brass, but of knowledge and mystery, and I was ready to see where it led. I held the cup in both hands, the ceramic warm against my fingers, steam curling up in soft tendrils, carrying a scent that was at once familiar and haunting. The tea wizard had said nothing as he placed the cup before me, only watching with those knowing eyes, waiting. The first sip was a whisper of memory, the second a ghostly caress, and the third, the third. My chest tightened as if a fist had clenched around my heart. A deep ache, raw and unhealed, spread through me like ink and water. I gasped, clutching at the table's edge as the world around me shimmered. The dim glow of the tea wizard's shop, the wooden shelves lined with jars of exotic blends, the worn rugs beneath my feet, all of it blurred, folded, and shifted. Then she was there. Celeste. The room was gone, replaced by the golden hues of a late autumn afternoon. Leaves rustled around us, caught in the slow dance of the wind. Her silhouette stood bathed in the soft glow of the sun, and my breath faltered. Time had preserved her cruelly well, as if no years had passed since the last moment I had seen her. The same deep-set eyes, the curve of her lips, the way she stood with arms folded, the wind playing in her raven hair. "Elias," she said, my name a melody I had nearly forgotten. I swallowed, my throat dry despite the lingering taste of the tea. "Celeste." Her eyes held mine, searching, questioning. "Why are you here?" I had no answer. Was this truly happening? A trick of the tea? A vision of my longing? But my heart thundered in my chest, and the ache within me was real. "I never truly left," I murmured, the words slipping past my lips unbidden. "Not in here." I pressed a hand to my chest, but it did nothing to still the tremors within me. Her expression softened, and for the first time in years I saw something in her gaze I had not dared hope for. Recognition, understanding, perhaps even regret. She stepped forward, and I saw the flicker of hesitation in her step. "After all this time, you still think of me?" I gave a hollow laugh. Every time the wind carries the scent of rain. Every time I hear a song we once loved. Every time I drink tea, Celeste. The words hung between us, fragile, dangerous. She bit her lip, her gaze dropping to the ground. "Elias, we made our choices. We let time and distance take us." I never let go. The confession was raw, unexpected even to myself, but I had never spoken truer words. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "You should have." Pain lanced through me. Should I? When every day since I've wondered what if? What if I had fought harder? What if I had stayed? She looked up sharply. And what if I had gone with you? What if I had left everything behind? Then maybe we wouldn't be standing here full of regrets. Silence stretched between us, heavy and bittersweet. The wind whispered through the trees, stirring the fallen leaves. Celeste turned away, her fingers curling around her sleeves. We can't rewrite the past, Elias, but we can decide what to do with the present. She stilled. A part of me feared she would vanish, that the vision would fade before I could speak the words I had held inside me for too long. I stepped forward, reaching for her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath my fingers. Tell me you don't still wonder. Tell me you don't still feel it. Her breath hitched. She looked at me, really looked at me, as if seeing the boy I once was, the man I had become. Then she exhaled a shuddering breath and closed her eyes. It doesn't change anything. It changes everything. She pulled away, and the loss of her touch was like a blade to my ribs. She turned, and I saw it, the war waging within her, the longing, the doubt, the love that had never truly left. I took a step forward. Celeste, don't let this be another memory we regret. She faced me again, and in her eyes I saw a decision teetering on the edge. Then the world blurred once more. The scent of autumn leaves faded, replaced by the rich aroma of tea. The wooden shelves of the tea wizard's shop came back into view. The worn rugs beneath my feet steadied. My heart still thundered, my breath still shook, and the ache in my chest had not lessened. The tea wizard watched me, his expression unreadable. I exhaled, setting the empty cup down with unsteady hands. What was that? Tea remembers, he said simply, and so do you. I closed my eyes. The ghost of Celeste's touch lingered on my fingers, the echo of her voice still warm in my ears. She had been real, if only for a moment, and I had been given a choice, one I had yet to make. I held the delicate porcelain cup between my fingers, the steam curling upwards in ghostly wisps, carrying with it a scent both foreign and familiar. The tea wizard watched me with eyes like embers buried deep within a bed of ash, their glow revealing something I could not yet understand. Drink, Elias, he urged, his voice a whisper carried on the gentle flicker of candlelight. A hesitation gripped me. What if this vision showed me a future I could never reach? Would it be a gift or a torment? Yet even as doubt tangled in my chest, I lifted the cup to my lips and took a cautious sip. The taste was unlike anything I had ever known. Floral, with the sharpness of citrus and the soothing caress of honey. Warmth unfurled in my veins like the first touch of dawn, and suddenly the world around me began to blur. My senses reeled, and for a moment I was weightless. Then with a shudder, I found myself somewhere new. The air smelled of fresh rain and blooming jasmine. Soft laughter echoed in the distance, and I turned toward the sound, my heart pounding. Before me was a sight I had long since deemed impossible. I stood in a lush garden, surrounded by faces radiant with joy. There was a house, modest yet filled with life, its windows aglow with golden light. My hands were steady, my shoulders unburdened. I felt whole in a way I had not in years. A woman approached, her eyes filled with warmth. Her fingers brushed mine in a touch so real I nearly wept. "Elias," she said, her voice carrying the melody of home. Could this be real? I reached out, grasping at the dream, at the possibility of it. But as my fingers brushed against the edges of this perfect world, the vision wavered, slipping through my grasp like grains of sand. "No!" The cry tore from my throat as I jolted back to the dimly lit room of the tea wizard. The cup in my hands was empty, the steam long gone. My breath came in ragged gasps, and my chest ached with the loss of something I had only just touched. The wizard regarded me solemnly, his hands folded before him. "You have seen what could be, Elias," he murmured. "Now you must ask yourself, will you chase it or let it remain a dream?" I swallowed hard, the aftertaste of the tea lingering on my tongue. The future had never felt more real, nor more distant. Could I reach for it? Could I make it mine? And if I did, what would it cost? I sat across from the tea wizard, my hands wrapped around the warm porcelain cup he had given me. The scent of jasmine and something more elusive, something ancient, curled into the air between us. The wizard, old yet sharp-eyed, traced the rim of his own cup with a long finger. His eyes shimmered like the surface of a lake catching the last light of day. "You have asked about my past, Elias," he said, his voice smooth as though aged like fine tea. "It is not a tale I tell lightly, nor one I often share. But tonight the leaves whisper that you should hear it." I nodded, settling deeper into my chair as he began. "Once I was not the tea wizard you see before you. I was merely a man, wandering with neither direction nor peace. My name then was Aldrich." The name felt weighty in the air, as if it held within it the weight of centuries. I was a scholar, drawn to the mysteries of the arcane, but my heart belonged to a woman named Lyria. A wistful smile crossed his lips, the kind that carried both warmth and sorrow. She was light where I was shadow, laughter where I was silence. It was she who taught me that magic was not just in the runes and relics, but in the simple act of kindness. A shared cup of tea on a cold night, a whispered secret beneath the stars. His fingers tightened slightly around his cup before he continued. "But fate is rarely kind to those who believe they have found happiness. The war came. Magic itself became a weapon, and I was called to wield it." A silence fell over us, heavy and thick as fog. Lyria begged me not to go, but I was young, foolish. I believed I could protect what I loved by standing on the battlefield. I was wrong. His voice cracked barely above a whisper. The battle lasted 3 days. When I returned, our village was nothing but embers. The house we built together had crumbled, and Lyria, his breath hitched. She was gone. A cold hand gripped my heart. I had never heard such raw grief woven into words before. "I searched for her," he said. for years. Every spell, every scrap of knowledge I gathered was in pursuit of undoing what had been done. But death does not return what it has taken. The wizard exhaled, slow and deliberate, as if steadying himself against the weight of memory. I was lost, Elias, truly lost, until I stumbled into a small village, weary and near collapse. And there an old woman invited me into her home. She offered me nothing more than a cup of tea and a place by the fire. His eyes lifted to meet mine, and I saw the embers of something resolute. That moment changed me. For the first time in years I felt warmth, not just in my hands, but in my soul. That single act of kindness, as simple as it was, anchored me back to the world. And so I chose to dedicate my life to creating a place where others might find what I had lost. A sanctuary, a moment of warmth in a world often too cruel. I swallowed, the weight of his story settling deep within me. That is why this place exists, Elias. Not for power, not for magic's sake, but for those who are lost, so they might find their way again, even if only for a moment. The tea in my hands had gone cold, but I did not mind. My heart was warm. The moment the warm tea slid down my throat, a fire kindled in my chest. It spread rapidly, not as a burn, but as a sensation of undeniable clarity. The wavering doubts that had coiled themselves around my thoughts unraveled in an instant. My mind, fogged with indecision just moments ago, was now razor sharp. I knew where Leora was. More importantly, I knew I had to find her now. The tea wizard observed me with an amused yet knowing glint in his eyes. "Ah, you feel it now, don't you? The courage, the clarity. This is the tea of second chances. It does not merely gift you bravery. It reminds you of what your soul already knows." I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the delicate porcelain cup on the wooden table before me. My fingers trembled, but not with fear. No, fear had abandoned me. It was urgency that set my limbs in motion. "She's near the Whispering Falls," I said, my voice resolute. "I don't know how I know, but I do." The tea wizard nodded approvingly. "Then go, Elias. Time is as fluid as the tea we drink. Waste none of it." Without another word, I bolted from his cozy, lantern-lit shop and into the cool night air. The cobbled streets of Eldermere were quieter than usual, the moon casting elongated shadows along the buildings. My feet barely made a sound as I ran, my heartbeat keeping pace with my determination. Leora had been missing for days, and every attempt to find her had led to dead ends. But now it was as if a thread of fate had been placed into my hands, leading me directly to her. The Whispering Falls. Why had I not thought of it before? It was our place, a secret haven nestled deep within the moonshade forest. As I veered past the town's gates, the scent of damp earth and pine filled my lungs. The forest loomed ahead, its trees towering like silent sentinels. I plunged into its depths, moving swiftly along the familiar paths we had once walked together. The further I ran, the louder the distant murmurs of the falls grew, mingling with the rustling leaves and nocturnal calls of unseen creatures. Then I heard it. A voice, faint, carried by the wind, but unmistakably hers. Elias, I skidded to a stop, breathless. Leora, I called, my voice breaking through the night. A rustling from behind a dense thicket made my heart leap. I pushed through the branches, barely feeling the sting of leaves against my skin. And there she was, Leora, sitting near the water's edge, her form illuminated by the moon's glow. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise and something else, relief. Elias, you found me. I dropped to my knees beside her, grasping her hands as if she might disappear. You're safe. I thought I lost you. She shook her head, her golden hair reflecting the soft light. I never meant to be lost. I was searching for something I thought I needed, but now I see what truly matters. I studied her face, noting the exhaustion, the traces of tears dried upon her cheeks. Come back with me, I urged. We have another chance. We can set things right. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she nodded. Yes, let's go home. With her hand in mine, I helped her to her feet, feeling the magic of the tea still thrumming through my veins. The tea of second chances had led me to her, and this time I wouldn't let go. The colors in the sky above me waver, shimmering like a mirage, before dulling at the edges. The brilliant spectrum that had painted the horizon is slowly retreating, as if second-guessing its return. I stand frozen, my mind tangled in an impossible choice. The tea wizard watches me from his place beside the low wooden table, his expression unreadable beneath the shifting candlelight. His robes, the color of steeped amber, rustle as he leans forward slightly. You feel it, don't you? His voice is gentle but firm. The pull of the unknown, the whisper of a path not yet walked. I nod, swallowing hard. The tea he brewed for me was more than just a drink. It was a key, unlocking visions of places I had never been, of people I had yet to meet. Possibilities stretched before me, vibrant and enticing, but fleeting like the colors now dimming in the sky. If I go, I murmur more to myself than to him, I might never come back. The tea wizard tilts his head slightly, considering me. True, but if you stay, you may never know what lies beyond the rainbow's edge. I let out a slow breath, watching the last slivers of violet and gold dissolve into the evening. My heart pounds with indecision. My time here has been brief but profound. The tea wizard's lessons, his stories steeped in wisdom and ancient knowledge, have altered me in ways I can barely understand. To leave now means stepping into uncertainty, but to stay means turning my back on the very thing that calls to me. What would you do? I ask, knowing full well that the answer is mine to find. The tea wizard chuckles softly, reaching for his cup and taking a slow sip. That is not my question to answer, Elias. His eyes glimmer like dark pools of liquid knowledge. I have walked my paths and made my choices. This one belongs to you. I exhale, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me like a heavy cloak. If I leave, I step into a world of mystery and potential danger. but also adventure and self-discovery. If I stay, I gain certainty, knowledge, and the safety of these warm walls, and the wise mentor who has guided me thus far. I look back at the fading sky one last time, then down at the cup in my hands. The remnants of the tea have settled at the bottom, the leaves forming patterns I can't quite interpret. Perhaps they hold the answer. Perhaps I already know it. My fingers tighten around the porcelain. My decision is made. I turn to the tea wizard, my voice steady. I have to go. A knowing smile plays at his lips. He sets his cup down and rises, the fabric of his robes whispering against the wooden floor. Then you should go before the last light fades, he says. But remember, Elias, the tea only shows possibilities. It is you who shapes the path ahead. I nod, feeling a mixture of exhilaration and fear. As I step toward the door, the cool night air rushes in, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine. The world beyond awaits, and with one last glance at the tea wizard's knowing eyes, I step into the unknown. The road stretched before me, a winding path of dust and stone leading back to the place I once called home. The warmth of the tea wizard's shop still lingered in my chest, a quiet ember glowing against the evening chill. The scent of spiced leaves clung to my clothes, a reminder of the parting gift he had placed in my hands, a pouch of his finest blend, meant to carry me through the long miles ahead. The sky was painted in streaks of amber and rose, the sun sinking low on the horizon. I had barely taken a dozen steps when something, a presence, stirred the air. My heart leapt. Ahead, where the path curved and dipped into a valley of wildflowers, stood a figure. Leora. She was a ghost of the past, standing still as the wind toyed with the loose strands of her hair. The golden light wrapped around her like a halo, casting long shadows on the earth beneath her feet. I stopped walking. My breath caught somewhere between surprise and something deeper, something unnamed. She had always been just beyond reach, a fleeting whisper in the wind, a dream I had spent too many nights chasing. And now here she was, real, solid, waiting. I forced my feet to move, though the weight of 1,000 unspoken words anchored me to the ground. Leora? My voice barely carried, swallowed by the vastness of the open road. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Elias. The sound of my name from her lips was a key turning in an old rusted lock. The years that had stretched between us, the nights of wondering, the echoes of words we never had the courage to say. It all pressed into that one moment. I stepped closer, hesitating at first, then striding forward as if drawn by an invisible thread. I didn't expect to see you. Her lips curved, a ghost of a smile. Nor I, you. She studied me, her gaze flickering to the pouch of tea in my hands. You've been with him. I nodded. There was no need to ask who she meant. I have. A knowing glimmer lit her eyes. And did he give you what you sought? I hesitated. Had he? The tea wizard had offered no grand revelations, no earth-shattering truths, and yet there was something within me now, a stillness, a warmth that had not been there before. "I think so," I said, though I'm still figuring out what that means. Leora stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint lines of worry etched at the corners of her eyes. "Elias, I—" She stopped herself, exhaling softly, her breath a whisper against the cooling air. I waited, giving her space to find the words. "I thought you wouldn't come back," she finally admitted. The weight of her words settled between us. I had left without saying goodbye, without looking back. There had been reasons, though whether they were good ones, I still wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I would. The truth was a fragile thing between us, delicate yet unyielding. Silence stretched. Somewhere in the distance, a bird trilled a lonely song. The scent of wild flowers and earth filled the air, mingling with the lingering fragrance of tea. Leora finally moved, reaching out with cautious fingers, tracing the edge of the pouch I held. "Then let's walk," she murmured. "You can tell me what changed." And so we walked. The road to my hometown stretched on, but for the first time in a long while, I wasn't walking it alone. I never imagined I would find Leora again, or perhaps that she would find me. The city had changed in the years since we had last met, but she had not truly. Time had graced her lightly, adding only a whisper of silver to her dark hair, a softening to her gaze that was already kind. And when she saw me, I knew in an instant that the magic of the past had not faded. We sat in a small cafe, unremarkable in every way. A bell chimed as I pushed open the door, a sound lost in the hum of voices, the clatter of spoons against ceramic. The scent of roasted beans and spice curled around us, distant echoes of something far greater. "You remember it too," I said, watching her as she stirred her tea. Her fingers paused just for a moment, and then she smiled. "How could I forget?" I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The memories flooded back with such clarity that for a moment I swore I could taste the air of that place again. Warm, fragrant, alive. "The Rainbow Tea Shop," I murmured, and Leora gave a small, knowing nod. It had not been a shop in the way this cafe was. There had been no sign on the door, no menu, no clear path that led you there. And yet we had both found it. Or perhaps it had found us. I told her everything. How I had stumbled upon the narrow alley where the lantern swayed without wind. How the cobblestones seemed to whisper beneath my steps. How the air itself shimmered, heavy with the scent of stories waiting to be told. And then there was the tea wizard. Leora laughed, a soft, delighted sound, and I saw in her eyes the same wonder I had felt on that long-ago evening. "He told me that every cup holds a memory," she said. "That once you taste it, it never truly leaves you." I nodded. I didn't believe him at first, not until the first sip. Even now, recalling it made my throat tighten, my hands tremble ever so slightly against the porcelain of my cup. It had been like drinking the very essence of a moment, the golden warmth of childhood, the crisp bite of a forgotten winter morning, the scent of jasmine carried on the wind of an unfamiliar city. The past, the future, all distilled into something impossibly tangible. "And now?" Leora asked, gesturing toward the tea before us. Ordinary, simple, the kind that could be found anywhere. I lifted it to my lips and sipped. The taste was nothing remarkable, yet something in my chest ached, as if the memory itself flavored it. "It lingers," I said, "even now." She reached across the table, her fingers warm against mine. Maybe that was the real magic all along. Not the tea, but the fact that we carry it with us. I thought of the tea wizard then, of the way his eyes had gleamed in the dim glow of his shop, of the quiet smile he had given me when I finished my cup, as if he had always known I would come to understand. The rainbow tea shop was gone now. I had searched for it more than once. The alley was just an alley, the cobblestones ordinary. No lanterns swayed in invisible breezes, and yet I could never quite shake the feeling that if I turned the right corner, at the right moment, I might find it again. Or perhaps it had only ever existed for those who needed it most. Leora and I sat in comfortable silence, the last rays of the sun slanting through the window, painting gold across the wooden table. We finished our tea, neither of us rushing to leave. The magic had found us once. In a way it never left. And in the quiet warmth of that cafe, I knew it never would.